Hi everyone, welcome back to the Crafty Author. My name is Anissa. I am the Crafty Author, and today we are going to wrap up our Sawtooth Star Quilt that we've been working on for several months. I told everybody last video, or asked everybody in the last video, to comment down below in the description box as to whether or not I should add an additional border to this quilt, or if we should just wrap it up and do binding. And the majority of you chose to just do the binding, so you like the quilt just the way it is. So I'm going to show you. Ugh, I got fuzz in my mouth from all the rag quilts I've been doing. I'm getting ready to stock them up in my my Etsy shop, because Etsy is going to be hosting a huge sale September 4th through the 7th, and I'm going to load my shop up so I can be part of that sale, so you get 20% off. So watch for that. I've already made 2 of them. They turned out so cute, so very, very cute. Anyway, I am going to do something a little different this time. I normally will rotary cut, so I'm just going to go ahead and give you the measurements. I normally would rotary cut my strips at 2.5 inches, okay? And then what I do is I iron that in half, and then that's how I make my binding. I'm going to use my AccuQuilt to do this. I have a 2.5 inch strip cutter, and I'm going to actually show you how I do this using my AccuQuilt, because it goes so much quicker. So we're going to do that. We're going to get started. We're going to bind the quilt. We're going to be done, and then we're going to move on to something else next time. All right, so let's get started. All right, so I have these scrap pieces that I used or cut off from making our quilt. Ugh, I can't speak today. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and fold these in half. And I'm going to set this one down right here, like so. So on this board, you can see it has blades, and it also has diagonal cuts that you can make. But for right now, I just want it to cut 2.5 inch. Actually, probably start with the bigger ones. I only need 6. I need 6 strips is what I need. So and you want to be careful when you're using these, because you can cut your fingers. They can be very sharp, the blades. All right, so here's 4 layers. I could go up a little bit more. Just put these extra 2 pieces on here as well. I know where the blades are going to be. They're going to cut it, so I'm good here. I can just fold this and not worry. Okay. Come on. Work with me. Like I said, this is just scrap left over from when I was doing the borders. So we're going to just do this right here. All right. Now I'm going to get my board, and we're going to cut. My mat. I forgot to grab my mat. That's what I was getting. All right, so I'm just going to put this on top of that, and we're going to cut. Okay, so I have the Go Big Electric cutter that I use for this, and all I'm going to do is just push it through, and it will go through on its own, and it will cut, and I will have perfectly cut pieces of 2.5 inch strips for my binding. Okay, so we're done cutting that now, and I am just going to pull these off the board. You can see I have these perfect 2.5 inch strips. I'm going to go sew them all together so that it's one continuous piece, and then I'm going to make sure that it does fit all the way around my quilt, which it should, and then we'll start binding our quilt. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do my binding. So I will take one piece right side facing up, then I will take another strip piece. Now this is just to connect the binding together so that it'll be one continuous piece. So then what I do is I lay this one horizontally face up, and I'm going to take my other piece and lay it vertically straight up and down, and this is going to be right side facing down. So you should have both of your right sides facing you. Okay? And then you're going to bring it over to your sewing machine, and you are going to line up on this corner right here on the diagonal, and you're just going to put your needle down, and you are going to sew from this corner down to the other corner, which is diagonal, just like that. And then if you want to keep adding more pieces, you're going to just continue on with the same method. So again, horizontal, face up, right side's facing up. I'm going to pull another piece, I'm going to lay it down vertically, and it's going to be right sides facing together. Again, I'm going to bring it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to start sewing from corner to corner diagonally. All right, so you're going to need a pair of scissors now, and you should have something that looks a little bit like this. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this excess off, and we're going to hold it just like when we sewed it. So you're going to have it facing like this. This is the part that you're going to cut off, is this excess top part that you don't need anymore. And we're going to cut about 1/4 of an inch. We're going to cut and leave 1/4 of an inch like that. Then when we go to open it, you should be able to just open it like so. I am going to press this open with my fingers right now, and voila. This just makes it look really nice when you are putting the binding on your quilt. You do not have to do this. You could sew it just straight. Now I have these two that are connecting because I chain pieced. So if you did that, then you'll need to remember to cut that loose. But I'm just going to continue to cut and leave about 1/4 of an inch. Going to finger press that seam open like so, and just going to continue on. All right, so now that we've gone ahead and prepared our binding, now what we're going to do is we're going to fold this in half, and you're just going to press it down. That is it. Easy peasy. Now, what I love about using my AccuQuilt to cut this is that it cuts it so perfectly straight. Whereas sometimes when I rotary cut, I don't rotary cut it real well. So, this certainly makes it go a lot faster when it's all nice and neat. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue doing this, just pressing it. I'm going to press that seam open that we finger pressed open, and I'm just going to continue to press this until I have the whole thing finished, and then we'll attach it to the quilt. All right, so I have everything ready to go. I've got my binding wound on my binding baby, which She keeps it all nice and straight for me. And if you're interested in getting a binding baby, I will link to it, but it's done by Doohickey Designs. This girl looks just like me. I had her custom made. I love it. It's great for when you are binding a quilt. It keeps it nice and straight. So we're gonna get started. I like to start on the longest side of my quilt. So that's where I'm gonna start. And I'm gonna hope that you're gonna be able to see here what I'm doing, because the quilt is quite large and will probably do just like what it just did. All right, so I may need to move, but I want to show you how I start this first. So I'm going to come over on the side of my quilt, and I'm just going to lay my binding down like right here. Okay, so you can see it here. And I line it raw edge to raw edge, and I'm going to probably leave a tail that's about 2.5 inches. So I just kind of eyeball that, where that might be. And that is where I'm going to start, is right there at that 2.5 inch mark. We're gonna get started. So I've already gone ahead and I started this at our 2.5 inch mark. I dropped my needle down, I took a couple stitches, and then I back stitched. Now I'm just going to start sewing this on all the way around the whole entire quilt. And yes, I am using a walking foot, and you will want to do that as well because it is very thick. Okay, we're getting close to a corner, and I want to show you how I do a corner here. Coming up on this corner here, and what I want to show you is I'm going to stop about 1/4 inch right about here, right where I have my finger there. Okay, so that's about it. I'm going to back tack just a tad, come back up, and you don't have to back stitch, but I do it just because I prefer to. I'm going to cut my threads, and I'm going to pull the quilt and get it prepared to come to this side now, because we're going to start sewing down this side. Now, the way that we do this is we are going to take our binding and we are going to just kind of fold it like this. So should be on the diagonal, so you should be able to pull your fabric up like that, and then you'll be able to, well, I do mine a little different. I just kind of pull it up and make a little square there, and then it lays fine, and then my raw edge is that way. So let's try that again. So I'm just gonna take it and just fold it up like that. And if you've sewn it correctly and stopped at the right spot, it will fold, and you'll have this 45-degree angle fold. And then I just start sewing again, putting my binding on. So I'm going to go ahead and finish doing this, and when I come to another corner, I'll show you that again. So we're coming up on another corner, and I am going to once again stop at about 1/4 of an inch, so that will be right about here. I'm going to mark it with a pin. So it's probably right about there. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew up to that point. You don't want to sew over the pin. So I'm going to remove it now and take a couple, there we go. A couple more stitches there. And I'm going to cut my threads. I'm going to move the quilt again. And I am going to just do what I did last time. I'm going to kind of take this up, fold this up like so, and then I'm going to fold. So it's really easy if you just take your thumb, and I'm kind of at a weird angle, so that's why I'm kind of struggling here. But you just take your thumb, and you kind of just, this part will, here, since you've left that 1/4 inch there, it'll fold for you. So you fold it up, and then you're good to go again. And just make sure your raw edges are lining up and that it's pretty straight. Takes practice. Takes a lot of practice, actually. So if you don't get it on the first try, don't get discouraged. Just keep working with it. You'll get it. Okay, so I have sewn all the way down with our binding now. And I'm just going to take these 2 pieces. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to bind a quilt and to get these pieces to line up. But I'm just going to, because I don't mind, this is a, you know, a personal quilt. I'm just going to stitch down here, right where I have this pin. So I have my 2 pieces that are up, and I'm just going to grab my quilt. I'm going to fold it like so. And then right where I have my pin marking this here is where I'm going to sew my seam. And it should lay perfectly flat now. So I'm going to trim so my quilt is now laying flat. Man, this thing is big and heavy. As you can see here it's flat and here it's flat. And that's what we want. So now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to trim that off. And now I'm going to stitch down and finish attaching my binding. So let's do that now. And back stitch that, and then I am going to back stitch that as well. And now our binding is attached. So, all right, so we have everything done now. Now we're going to start doing we're going to actually do the binding to the other side. So, man, I got a lot of loose threads. You can either take your iron and press your binding out that way. You do that around the whole entire quilt. This will help you when you go to fold it. Everything will be nice and flat for you. So you want to flatten this part out. Or you don't have to. You can actually just take it to the machine and just start folding and sewing if you want to. It just depends on what you're comfortable with. Here we go. We've gone ahead and pressed out the thing. This quilt is very large, by the way. Kind of struggling with it. So you want to start somewhere. So I'm just going to start here. And you're just going to fold. I use clips. I just prefer them. You can pin them. You don't have to do anything with them. You can glue them. You could actually glue this down and use your iron to do that. I'm not doing that. I'm going to just keep folding and clipping like I normally do. All right, so here we go. This is the important part that I want to show you. So this is how we miter a corner. This is why we do the binding the way that we do it, like the way that I showed you. Why you stop at the 1/4 of an inch, you pull out, and then you, so I'm going to move you in because I really want you to see this part. You want to take this part on the opposite side, and then you want to fold down. Okay? You really want this miter like this. So, as you can see, I have this perfect point here, and my points are meeting here. That's a perfectly mitered corner. I'll clip that there too. Probably don't need to, but. And then I'm just going to continue folding as I go down. Now, I want to show you what it looks like on the front side. This is what it looks like on the front. And this is what it looks like on the back. Okay, so now I'm going to just flip this one over. And I'm just going to continue to fold and drop things. And come on. Come on with all the loose threads already. I'm sick of them. See, you can see there's lots of that. I will tell you what else will help with this. So if you find that you're having a lot of these loose threads, like I am, I should have done this to begin with, but what will cut down on that is if you do a quick basting stitch with a zigzag all the way around, that will take care of that problem. I don't know why I didn't do that, but I didn't. So now I'm going to deal with it. It's not bad. It'll work. So we're just going to keep folding over. And you're just going to keep clipping. The clips really help. I'm just saying, I used to just kind of wing it and fold it as I went along. I just find that taking the extra time to clip it really makes a big difference. You don't get off, you're not off. Everything kind of just stays really uniform. So if you're in a hurry, then I would recommend not doing this at the moment. You definitely want to take your time when you're doing this part, because this is what pulls it all together. Okay. All right. So we're going to do another corner. I'm going to show you how to do that again. So we're going to take our opposite edge. Again, I'm sorry about the extra threads here. And we're just going to fold. So you want to fold this side. Now you could fold it like this. I do mine like this sometimes too. Okay, but I find that if you fold it from the opposite side, the mitering actually works a little bit better. So you want to make sure you get that point in there, like that. And sometimes you just kind of have to work at it. You'll see it's like what it's like on the front side, and this is what it's like on the back side. Sometimes you have to do it a couple of times to get it to lay down the way you want it. But once it's down, it looks fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish doing this, and then I'll show you how I sew my binding on. Okay, so I've got everything clipped up and ready to go, and we are just about finished. So the only thing that I do now is I'm going to choose a decorative stitch on my machine to do this. I always use a decorative stitch to attach binding. It's personal choice. You do not have to do that. You could do a straight stitch. You could do a stitch in the ditch, which would be, sorry, I'm still clipping out loose threads. If you wanted to do a stitch in the ditch, you would just go in here and you would use like either a foot that stitch in the ditch foot, or you would be very careful and sew with just your needle in the seam line here. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to do a zigzag stitch, and so I'm just going to get started on that. And okay. Okay, here we go. Oh, it helps if I choose the stitch. Okay. I'm going to keep my foot right there on the edge of my seam right here, because I want to make sure that I'm actually catching back here on the back. And that is all that there is to it. So I will finish this, and then we will observe it at the end. All right, friends. Can almost hardly believe it myself, but the Sawtooth Star Quilt is actually finished. Yay, it's done. I've got fuzz all over me from my rag quilt. I'll show you the rag quilt that I'm working on. I've already made two, and getting ready to sew these pieces together now. Isn't that cute, with the little foxes and the cuddle fabric? So that's why I'm covered in fuzz, to be perfectly honest. My whole craft room is covered in fuzz right now because of flannel. Anyway, so the Sawtooth Star Quilt is done. It has taken since March. So how many months is that? March, April, May, June, July, August. 5 months, almost 6 months to finish this quilt. We started this quilt during the lockdown as something to do. It was a sew along, and some of you have already finished yours, and I still hadn't finished mine, but now it is done, and I can say yay, and I can be done with it. I'm really happy to be done with this quilt, to be honest. my husband called dibs on this quilt, so this is now his quilt. And it is large, it is heavy, it is all kinds of stuff. It is awesome. So I'm going to show you, since we did the binding, this is what the binding looks like. And as you can see, I used that really cool zigzag stitch. And all I did was go right along this line right here. That's where I lined up my foot, and this is what it did. And this is what it looks like on the back. So I'm showing you this because if you decide to machine bind your quilt, you'll see what it looks like. You can also hand stitch if you want to, but I've hand stitched a couple quilts, the binding on the quilts, and I just find that it's so much easier just to machine quilt it, honestly. And if it's a quilt that's going to get used a lot, machine binding will really help the quilt to last a little bit longer, I think. So it's just my preference, but whatever. That's what it looks like on the back. You can't see any of the yicky stuff up underneath. Okay, it's all good. Everything looks great. Mitered corners. Here's a mitered corner. This is why we sew the corners this way. And I'll show you what it looks like on the front because it looks amazing. There you go. See how cool that looks? And yeah, you can tell that my machine got a little bit stuck right there. So you'll want to go really slow, or else you'll want to just kind of turn the wheel to get it over that, because that's a really thick piece. I like to sew really fast, so that's why mine looks like that. Let's see if I can find another one. That's much better. See, I was taking my time on that one. So that's it. I think I've shown you how this quilt looks, but I'm going to show you what it looks like with the binding on it so that you can actually get a good look at it. What it looks like with it. Okay. I'll take pictures of it and put it at the end, and that way you can really see it. But you can see how big this quilt really, really is. I mean, it is so cool. And then the bottom, of course, has the other two pinwheels on it. So I'm going to measure this, and I will be right back. All right, so the quilt measures 52 by 64. It is large. So anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed that quilt and sew along and learning how to make all of that with the Quilt As You Go method. As you can see, you can make quite a large quilt with that method on a domestic machine. So highly recommend it if you're going to be making a queen size or a king size and you want to quilt it yourself. That's definitely the way to go. So if you would like to follow me on social media, the links are down below in the description box. Don't forget to give this video a like. Feel free to share, because sharing is caring. Don't forget to click on that little bell so that you'll get notified each and every time that I upload a new video. Plus, if you really like the content that I put out and you want to support me by subscribing, that helps me a lot. Comment below if you have any questions, or if you just want to say, hey, this is totally awesome. And keep on crafting. And that's it for me today. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye. All right. This has been washed, and this is what it looks like. All in full. This is the back. Turned out really, really cool.